Proud to have a rabbi in our midst, Rabbi Bovit, the rabbi of Belrose Jewish Center. He's been with us for a long time, and now let's listen to his words of wisdom and, as he inspires us with hope for the new year.
Thank you, Phil. Today we're thinking, this is our Hanukkah Christmas party, and I'm supposed to discuss with you a little bit tonight about the theme of our holiday season, what it's all about, how it relates to us. Here we're members of a Republicans Club. We are, as it's mentioned, we're the oldest Republicans Club in the United States. And people don't, I maybe saw my article that I wrote that Phil was kind enough to put in the newsletter. And in that article I talked about don't hide the R, right? What does it mean to be a Republican, right? It means a Republican means we stand for what is a republic. We're a nation of laws, right? Now, a democracy is how you vote for people, right? But if you just have a pure democracy, that doesn't guard people's individual liberty, their individual rights. All right, our society is based on something called natural law, right? God gave us our rights, right? We have personal liberty as individuals. I'm going to tie that into the theme of Hanukkah and Christmas in just a little bit here. But the time that we got together tonight is a very auspicious time, because we're commemorating, as was mentioned earlier by Phil, we're talking about tonight, it's the commemoration of the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. This is what brought us into World War II. The infamous Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the sneak attack, that brought us into the Second World War. Now, of course, the United States, everybody, we could schmooze a little bit later, do that. So it brought us into World War II, okay? Now, at the same time, when I think of December 7th, I think about something else also. December 7th was my father, Oliver Shalom's birthday. And some of you know, I've talked about a little of my personal story. My father was a Holocaust survivor. He survived the Holocaust of World War II. He lost his whole family. Came to the United States, and he was an exemplar of what it means to be a real American. Because America is an immigrant country, but a country of immigrants who want to be Americans. Not immigrants who say, let's wipe out America, we're going to become a fractionalized state, like, balkanized state of a bunch of different identity groups that everybody's going to kind of be pitching for their little identity group and saying who deserves more.
Excuse me, Rabbi, I think people are being very rude. Yeah. I can't hear you, and I want to hear you.
All right.
So please, can we all give the rabbi attention?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, I was speaking about my father. Today was his birthday. Okay, he would be today 99 years old if he was still alive. But he exemplified what it meant to be a real American. He came to this country with absolutely nothing. I have pictures of him coming on the ship he came to the United States on. He told me how he cried when he saw the Statue of Liberty, and he knew he was going to be given this fresh start on life, right? This fresh start on life. And he worked hard, and he made himself a success. He never asked for any special favors, any special handouts, any special programs, any special anything. He worked hard, he was thrifty, he saved his money, he built a business, he raised a family, and he loved America. And he would tell me all the time, and I was involved, you've heard me say this before, I'm repeating myself, but I was involved, like Phil, we were hippies, right? And Phil was a hippie yet. Like Abby Hoffman was my hero when I was a kid. Like, right? Yippies, right. So I was out there protesting against the Vietnam War and all that, because of course I didn't completely grasp everything as a kid. And I'd come home from these protests, and my father would tell me, he'd say in his accent, you know what? You should thank God every day for being American. You should get down and kiss the ground and thank God you were born an American. And you know what? So when I think about Pearl Harbor and World War II, what brought us into World War II, and my father lost his whole family, but, the United States liberated him. He was actually, we talk about slavery, my father was a slave. He worked as slave labor. And even, when they built those rockets the Germans were building, that's one of the things he did. He was one of the slave laborers building those rockets. And so he tied these things together, right? We're commemorating this right now. When I think of Pearl Harbor Day, I think about the events that led to World War II and led to my father losing his family. I never knew my grandparents on that side. But my father was liberated by this great country and came here, and it took me a long time to grow up and recognize how that was. So we have to be patient with some of these millennials today, right? I had a long conversation the other day with a member of my congregation's grandson. very bright young kid, and when he was, I've known him for years, right? When he was in high school, he wanted to be in special forces in the military, then he wanted to be in the CIA. He ended up going to school and majoring in foreign affairs and in diplomacy and things like that. And in his college experience converted him into being a Marxist. Yeah, he's in the university system, right? We spent over 2 hours on the phone the other night, and I think I made a real impression on him. Because these kids are idealistic. They're not bad, they're idealistic. They're idealistic. Let's talk about some ideals, right? So Hanukkah and Christmas come together. We have our two traditions coming together. And the theme really is Christmas, and I'm not really qualified to speak for Christmas, about Christmas. You need a Christian clergy to do that. But from what I understand, really the heart of it maybe is hope, isn't it? Isn't Christmas really about hope? Yes. It's about a messianic time, hope, world coming together, people not being evil, people not doing bad things to each other, people being what God, really acting in the image of what God created us to be, right? Yes. And Hanukkah literally means dedication. That's what it means. It means dedication. So you've got to put these things together, hope and dedication. And that's really what we're here about. That's what we're here about as Republicans coming into this season together, standing up for the Republic. To me, being a Republican isn't so much about this is my team and I'm waving a flag. Because if I'm going to root for teams, politics is very interesting to me, but yeah, sports is interesting too. I watch sports and root for a sports team. Not the NFL, I'm boycotting the NFL this year. And I strongly suggest everybody else do that also. They don't deserve our support. A bunch of spoiled imbeciles. And here's something else. I'm going to segue off to the side here for a second. The real problem with the NFL that people don't talk about today is not the NFL itself. I talked about the young millennial I talked to about college. Maybe he's not even a millennial yet. You have to be a certain age. They have another thing. It's another generation. I think it's pre-millennial, like preschool or something like that. But anyway, the real problem with the NFL is not the NFL. It's college football. You have a bunch of people who are not really students. Some of them can't even sign their name to a piece of paper. They can't read, but they're athletes. So the corrupt system of college football gives them a scholarship. Now, athletic scholarships were a good thing. That meant somebody who was a serious guy, or it could be a girl, was a serious person, but their family didn't have a lot of cha-ching, right? Not a lot of money to spend, right? But the kid wants to go to college, and he's not an exemplary student. He's not an honor student. So he finds something. This guy plays football really well. This guy plays basketball really well. He'll give our school spirits. He'll play well for our team, and this will give him a chance to. We're going to help him out because he's going to give us school spirit. And that was corrupted in college sports. Has been corrupted and turned into kind of an apprenticeship for the NFL and the NBA. And so you have these people, these kids come in there. It's not really their fault, right? Because they've been prepped for this for a long time. That's how they're going to get ahead in life. So they come into college. They don't really have to be students. They get away with a lot of bad behavior. They have alumni associations and boosters and all these people fixing everything for them behind the scenes. And then while they are in college, they might not be learning very much, but they're getting indoctrinated with Marxist professors and taking all kinds of bogus courses. So what do you expect when they get to the NFL? They've been pampered and spoiled and indoctrinated with Marxist philosophy and politics, and then they come to the NFL and they're and what should we expect after all that? So that's the real problem we need to think about here. And anybody who is an alumni of any university here is here tonight, you should be contacting the university that you're an alumni of and saying that you do not want any more of these phony scholarships being given out. Let's dedicate ourselves to that. Instead of protesting what these imbeciles are doing, these imbeciles are the end of the chain. The chain began when they entered college as phony students. But anyway, I want to get back to really what I wanted to talk about here tonight. Hope and dedication. Now, yesterday, President Trump did something phenomenal. He recognized Jerusalem as being the capital of the state of Israel. Now we're applauding, and I was applauding, and I had tears in my eyes as I was watching it on the television. But the fact of the matter is, it just shows how insane the world is today. Has anybody here ever opened up the Bible? No. A few of you probably have, right? Now, if you opened up the Bible, you would already know that Jerusalem was the capital of the Jewish people already for over 3,000 years, right? Like, they always say, well, they have the government buildings there, and this is where they have the best takeout food. They have the falafel stand everybody wants to go to, and that's why they should do this. It's a really good falafel. Don't want to Tel Aviv, the falafels aren't so good. They're better in Jerusalem, so that's why they should have the government sitting there. That's why they have the government there, not in Tel Aviv. They got in Jerusalem because they could get the falafel. Yeah. Little tip of the hat to Jackie Mason. He's not here tonight. He couldn't make it. Jackie Mason couldn't make it, so I came instead. I'm sorry. You'll have to put up with me instead of Jackie Mason for a little bit. So, but the real thing is it's the Bible, right? Amen. It's the Bible that says Jerusalem's the capital. You know what? And that was 1,500 years before some warlord named Muhammad claimed he was a prophet and started a religion. That's right. And in the Bible, Jerusalem's mentioned 669 times. 669 times, not once, not twice. They like that, it figures pretty prominently in the Bible if you've kind of looked at that book. I'm sure just about all of you have. In the Quran, it's not in there. Later, they made up a story in the Hadith that Muhammad, they said he went to the farthest mosque. They say he flew on a winged horse to heaven, right? Doesn't even say in that Hadith what the name of it is yet, right? It doesn't even say Jerusalem. This is only later because they conquered it, so they wanted to make it their own. It only became important because it's important to us. That's why it became important. So the fact that President Trump, we heard about, Phil and Joe talked about him a little bit earlier. Okay, he's a guy from our generation. I've been talking about this for a long time. You look in the book of Judges, and you look at the story of Samson. You say, how could a guy like this be the judge, the holy leader of the generation, right? He was a tough guy. He was a brawler. Did some things that were a little bit not so right? A few times maybe. But anyway, okay, President Trump, he's the guy for our generation. He's the perfect leader for our generation because this is a generation that's really slid down pretty low. We have to admit it, right? Our technology might be really high, but our morals are low. Our self-esteem is low. I mean, just the way people conduct themselves. I mean, and we're a nation of celebrities these days. So what's the best anecdote to that? A guy who was a celebrity, who all of a sudden he has, in Jewish thought, there's something called rusulatata. It means in Kabbalah, it means arousal from above. They said God sometimes reaches down to a person and kind of gives them a little bit of almost like a slap in the face and wakes them up and gives them an inspiration. And I believe that's what happened to President Trump. I believe that God said, you are the guy for our generation. It inspired him. He got interested in the issues. He empathized. Here's a guy who's a billionaire, but he's a regular guy too. He's here from Queens, right? Right down the street. So he's a billionaire, but he's a regular guy too. And he empathized with regular people. He saw regular people were getting worked over by the system. And the elites were trampling over everything. And he stood up against it, and he won an election. And he's doing he's a common sense guy. All these people tell him, oh, it's not right. You can't recognize Jerusalem. If you recognize Jerusalem, it's going to hurt the chances for peace. Peace? Peace? You know what? If you recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the Muslims are going to get violent. They're going to get violent? The religion of peace? You got to be kidding. They're going to get violent? What have they been doing up to now? Yeah. So President Trump he's telling the truth. He's just saying what it is, right? And he said it in really moderated terms too, because a lot of people were trying to hold him down. It's like, it's almost like, the story of Samson where the Philistines strapped him down. Here his own staff is strapping him down a little bit, trying to get him to not go too far. He said it in very diplomatic terms, but he said the truth. And of course, ironically, they had Theresa May, who's the Prime Minister of the UK. And she was criticizing him. President Trump, this is not the right time to doing such a thing. Rage. You know what she sounds like? A little bit like Julia Child when she was drunk. But interesting enough, Theresa May, while she was blubbering about President Trump recognizing Jerusalem, the same day in the UK, they stopped the plot to murder her. Muslim terrorists were planning to murder her that day. They had this crazy plot where they're going to throw bombs into the Prime Minister's residence and distract them so they can run in and stab her with knives. They're not always that smart, you know. Being a terrorist doesn't exactly, don't have an IQ test to be a terrorist, you know. The bar is pretty low, right? But anyway, they stopped them. So on the day they want to murder her, she's complaining to President Trump, we don't want to get them mad. I wonder what got them mad that they wanted to kill her for. I don't know. I can't figure that one out. But anyway, so this is the season where we have hope, right? And President Trump has helped give us hope. He's been a big Christmas present to a lot of people, a big Hanukkah present to a lot of people, starting with last year and this year. And we see that draining the swamp is not an easy thing to do. That we have this deep state everywhere, right? Everywhere we look, we have this deep state. We have right now, but it's all, you know what, it's all getting flushed out right now. This Mueller with all his operatives, Democrat operatives, they're all being flushed out to the surface now, right? Because Trump stands firm. And that's like, he's not doing what Republicans have done for too long. Republicans have been weak-kneed. As soon as anybody said anything, they said, I'm sorry, I don't really mean it. Maybe I'm not such a Republican. I'm not so sure. I'm a Republican, but not such a Republican. You know, like he doesn't do any of that. He just gets up there and he just says no. I'm telling you the truth. So he's sticking to his guns. And it's been a struggle. We see it going through a lot of changes in his administration. Hopefully Tillerson will be gone at the beginning of January. That'll be good. I mean, it takes a while to put this thing together. This is a guy who might have been, people say he was privileged. His father gave him $1 million to start with, right? No, most of us didn't have $1 million to start with, let's face it. We took $1 million and turned it into $11 billion. You got to be pretty smart to do that, right? So he's a successful guy, but he's coming at the government where it's a whole different thing, because government operates on a different principle. In business, you got to make a buck, right? If you don't make a buck, you close your doors, right? If you open up a restaurant and you serve bad food and you're rude to your customers, no one's going to come back. You're going to close your door, right? Now, if you're a politician, you don't have to make money. You're spending other people's money. You don't have to be successful. It doesn't make a difference. You just lie. All you do is just lie and blame it on someone else. Make up an excuse, and then you just raise the taxes, or a little this, you steal the money from here and put it over there, right? So it's a whole different business, and he's still learning this business. So we got to continue to be patient with him, right? And he's doing a fantastic job. He's been a great Hanukkah present, a great Christmas present from last year and for this year. And he needs our support. The president needs our support. And I know a lot of people here in New York, Joe talked about this earlier, in New York, to some people, Trump, is like a bad word, right? You know what you do? Just be patient with them and discuss it with them, right? Let them be crazy if they want to be crazy. Just discuss it with them. Just stay firm for your principles. And he's a this, he's a that, he's a this, he's a that. And like Joe just said a few minutes ago, do you have any money invested? How'd you do on that, right? You notice the economy's doing pretty good. And by the way, you see as he goes around the world, people seem like they take him a little bit seriously, right? He met with the royal rulership of Saudi Arabia. You see the pictures comparing him to Obama? Oh, yeah. Obama was bowing to them, and they were bowing to Trump. Okay? As Trump himself would say, that's bigly, right? Because he's getting respect, right? He's getting respect around the world. He's having a hard time getting respect in his own government, though. And that's where he's going to need our support. We need to be vocal and speak up. Hold our fellow Republicans to account that they need to support the president, right? Now, he's not always going to do the right thing also. He's a human being, right? He might make some mistakes here and there. He's still learning this business. But we know if he's successful enough with everything else he's been doing, we know he's going to be successful at this also. Now, Hanukkah is a time of bringing light, and Christmas is also a time of light, right? We've got to bring light into it. We bring God's light in the world. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who was a great Hasidic rabbi, and he said, if you go, sometimes we think like, especially here in New York, it's such a place of political darkness, right? And a lot of people get disheartened. What can I do? But Rabbi Nachman teaches that, it's interesting. We go into the darkest room, and you light one little match, it seems like it lights up the whole room, doesn't it? The same way, we should never get discouraged. A little bit of light that we put into that room, that we put into our community, that we put into the conversation, is going to light things up. Now, we light the menorah on Hanukkah. There's 8 candles, goes for 8 days. Everybody's familiar with the legend of the miraculous oil. It lasted for 8 days. That's because Jews don't like to spend too much money on oil, so they wanted to last for 8 days. They said, listen, maybe you've got some oil that can last for 8 days. They said, for you, such a deal. So, but you know, the thing is, we light you can still light with oil if you want to. Some people still light olive oil, right? But you know, most people use candles. Whatever you want to do, candles, oil, whatever, as long as you light, it's fine. So the thing is, our custom is every day we add another light. But actually, there's an interesting discussion in the Talmud. That how should you light the menorah? Because apparently there is, you know, these rabbis, they like to argue a lot. It's a Jewish custom, what can I say? They like to argue. So there was two rabbis, Hillel and Shammai. These two were competitors, they're always arguing. And Rabbi Shammai said his idea was we should start with 8 candles and work our way down to 1. And Hillel said, no. We start with 1 candle, we work our way up to 8. And the rabbis decided in the favor of Rabbi Hillel, that we work from 1 up to 8. And there's an interesting lesson when you read the commentaries on this that I think works into what it means to be an American in a very strong way. Because what Shammai is talking about, you have 8 candles, right? So it's all the candles together, and then so it's like you go to, in Hebrew it's called the klal and the prat. They're 2 different terms. One means the overall encompassing, and one means the individual, right? So Rabbi Shammai is saying that you put everything together, and then you go to the individual. And that's like saying that the rabbis reject it, though. They go to Hillel's form. Hillel says you start with the 1 and go to the 8. And what that means is, that's something that means to be an American. Our individual liberties are what's so important. We recognize each one of us is so important as an individual. I had this long conversation I'm bringing back with this young man who had been affected by Marxism in the university. He was babbling about socialism and Marxism and, you know, all this. And he was missing at the point of the integrity of the individual. And that our country was founded on the sanctity of individual rights. That our property is ours, right? Property's not bad. It's what you do with the property, right? God gives it to you. You use it as a tool to do good in the world, right? It's not bad, right? So your property is sacrosanct. Your rights are sacrosanct. Your rights weren't given to you by some government, some king. God gave you those rights just because you were born. You're an individual. And that flag says that there's a constitution that's an insurance policy that says that those rights will be protected. That our government is there not to sit over us and tell us what we can have and what we can't have and redistribute wealth and tell people what they can say and what they can't say. Oh, that's a bad thing you said. You got somebody upset. You can't say any hate speech or anything like that. That what we say, our freedom of speech is sacrosanct, our property is sacrosanct, our liberty is sacred. And we understand that the individual's liberty is sacred, we bind ourselves together. As a nation, we work from the 1 up to the 8. We bind ourselves up in this nation, and our lights all come together, right? And it shines brightly. And that's really what America is about, because I really believe America is really a fulfillment of God's promises in many, many ways. We're all familiar with the passage in Isaiah, I believe it's the 49th chapter, that talks about being a light unto the nations. And in that it says, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not just here for the tribes of Judah and Israel. I'm here for the world, right? And that is coming to fruition in this country. That's what this country is all about. This country is the fruition of God's blessings, that the individual is important, that our individual rights are important, that we are all created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Tselem v'demut Elohim, in the image of God, we are all created. And that's what we have to dedicate ourselves to. Hanukkah is dedication. As we have to have hope for Christmas is about hope. We can't give up, even we see that the left is dominating the schools and the universities and the media, and you see the flapping mouths on the television telling their lies. Can't discourage us for a second. We have dedication, we have hope, we are Americans. And it's interesting that the United States and Israel are the 2 countries in the world that stand up against the flood of the yapping mouths in the United Nations and all the people who think just the opposite. They think just the opposite, that rights can be dispensed by some kind of elites. So when we get together right now to celebrate, we're going to have a good time tonight, but it's a serious time also. Because, when we come together, we're bringing our lights together, we're shining bright, and we have to dedicate ourselves. We have to dedicate ourselves to go forward. We have to support our president, President Trump. We have to support our Constitution. We have to do this proudly and openly. Can't what in Yiddish is called fumfering, right? One of my friends back there talked about protests. You want to put a protest together? Put it together, brother. That's great. Ira came up with this idea for the newspaper. You know what? We're going to do that. We're going to call it the Queen's Patriot because we're patriots. And if you ever write, anybody ever write articles for their high school newspaper or anything like that? Some of you did, right? Okay, so you could write. Don't worry about it. You know what? Ronnie is the world's best copy editor. I'm making more work for you, dear son. And she actually, fixes the prose for a famous best-selling author too. So she knows what she's doing. So if you write and say, maybe I'm not so professional, I don't know, I'm not so sure, she'll fix it up for you. I'll churn out my stuff. I write. So we're going to produce stuff. But we need more than just two people writing. Write some stuff. Write what's going on. Write what's going on in the community. Write your support for this country. Write your support for our military. Needs our support too. Our military needs our support. Freedom's not free. We had our Interfaith Thanksgiving. I put on the back of that program a picture of our troops in Iraq, and it said, don't forget there are some people that don't get to go home for Thanksgiving. They're there protecting our freedom all the time, right? So they need to hear our support. We need to support the flag. We need all the things. We could write about these things. We could talk about these things. There's many, many ways to do that. I just want to end by paraphrasing because I don't want to go on for too long. We want to have some music and some fun tonight. But in our prayer, the standing prayer, the main prayer in Jewish prayer is called the Amidah, or the standing prayer. And we add a thing called Al HaNisim. And I'm not going to get the book out because it'll take too long to do that. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it for you. Al HaNisim means on the miracles. And what it says there is that it was miraculous. The Maccabees overcame the Seleucids who had oppressed them. And it says that the Maccabees, it was the few against the many, the people who looked weak against the people who looked powerful. It was the pure against the impure. And that's what we really are doing against the world right now. It's the United States and Israel standing up against even the good Western countries have been corrupted right now by the leftist elites. And that's what it is, Al HaNisim. So we can know that when we stand up like the Maccabees, right? They stood up in the face of idolatry and oppression, and they bravely stood up. You know what? God will give you the strength to be successful. That's called matzliach in Hebrew. So let God, give a prayer right now, let God grant us hatzlacha rabba, great success, that we stand up and support our country, support our president, support our Constitution, stand up for our flag, that Hanukkah and Christmas and Hanukkah be a time of hope and dedication, that we all have great success in going forward with this, because you know what? We can't ever become depressed. We can't ever become negative. We have to continue to think positively because we can be successful. Let us say amen. Amen. And let's continue with the rest of the party.